Greetings everyone, Zach here for the follow-up video to the sunflower cheese, the raw fermented vegan sunflower cheese recipe. We're going to do a taste test and I'm going to note some of the different characteristics vary from each of the 4 jars that I made, and then I'm also going to describe a few notes as to what could be done differently for the next time that I prepare them. Because as with any food product, it's all about experimentation and then refining the recipe for our next endeavor. So let's start looking at them. First of all, to show you guys what it looks like upon completion, there is a brownness at the top, which is and little air bubbles, which you can't see too well. But there's little air bubbles that form in it because of the reaction of the bacteria. And then the brown at the top is a little bit startling, but it is essentially a layer of very dense probiotic bacteria that the organisms naturally form in order to keep out competing bacteria. So it's nothing to be concerned about. If it freaks you out, you can go ahead and just scoop that layer off and compost it. That's no problem. Or you can stir it in and the color will redistribute, and it's fine either way. But this first one is our which one is this? This is the one that we put lemon juice in. So the only ingredients in this were sunflowers, salt, and lemon juice. So I got little organic Persian cucumbers. I'll put a little bit on here and try it out. The consistency came out pretty good. It definitely thickened up because like I told you when I made it, I put a little bit too much water in, so it was runnier than I had hoped. But it thickened up into a pretty good consistency, so it's like a almost hummusy consistency now. Pretty good smell. I can definitely see the sour cheesy smell. Pretty good. The lemon juice definitely gave it the a good tang to balance the kind of the skunky cheesy flavor. So I think this one's definitely pretty good there. Let's go into the next one. The next one is our cayenne pepper. This one seems to be a little bit more thick. I don't know, somehow maybe the hot pepper changed the way that the bacteria evolved. Because like I mentioned in the last video, these probiotic bacteria evolve so much through the course of a fermentation that they wind up essentially creating different, I don't know if species wouldn't be the right term, but subspecies or something. They wind up slightly different varieties. And in the commercial industries, this is kind of what people that brew beer, for instance, each brewer will have a unique strain of yeast that they develop through time, and that's partially what gives the specialty nuances to the drink. So, all right, I've got some of our cayenne on here. Very interesting. The spiciness also seems to really complement the cheesy, the cheesy like sour, or whatever you want to call it. The heat is also kind of interesting. How the bacteria have changed it. It definitely broke it down quite a bit to where, like when you use hot peppers in a recipe, once you leave it sit overnight, like if you have some of it left, the spice distributes through it better. I mean, this definitely has a more initial punch to the heat than it did last time. But the flavor of the sunflower itself has definitely notably been changed. It has a kind of hearty, kind of warmer tone to the flavor. So it's good. Next is our coconut oil addition. Interesting. As I assumed, it definitely added a complementary creaminess. However, for the sunflower, it didn't actually help the overall flavor as much as I pictured it might. When using cashews or macadamias or the more high-fat nuts when making cheese, the coconut oil can really add like a nice, I don't know, the creaminess complements it a little bit better, is what I'm trying to say. But it's good. It's good. But I think in the future I might not really worry about adding the oil. The bacteria seem a little bit less happy is the intuition I'm getting. Perhaps living in a coconut oil dense environment is not preferable to them. And our last one is the Sheila Heat added. I'm very excited to explore this one a little bit. Sheila Heat, as I mentioned in the last video, is a mineral supplement which is derived from, or it comes from, the Andes Mountains. And this comes from India and is refined via an Ayurvedic practice, which is very old. And this is extremely powerful stuff. It's very helpful for detoxification, but it also serves as a mineral supplement. And like I said, we sell this in the Eternity in a Box store, and it's pretty cheap, and it's an interesting supplement to add to the diet. For me, it's the only supplement I've ever had that really provided a noticeable change in my daily energy profile. So it's pretty cool stuff, and I've never added this to cheese before, so this is a pretty profound moment for me. That one's really good. Hard to really describe it. Sheila Heat has a really earthy flavor, so I can definitely taste the flavor of the Sheila Heat. But the sourness of the cheese was also changed through the evolution of the bacteria, and that's kind of what I felt intuitively, that the Sheila Heat might be really beneficial to the bacteria because it provides such an array of trace minerals that the bacteria would have a lot of interesting nourishment to utilize during their evolution. I really like this one. One thing that I think I will do differently next time is I will sprout my seeds a little bit less. These have a certain flavor that is slightly off. Not bad. Anything with fermentation, it really, assessing the result comes down partially to our intuition and our own assessment. I've never had anything that came out bad to where it was like in any way negative. But it is possible to have, not the right bacteria come into it. And if so, the smell comes out kind of like repulsive. I haven't really seen that myself. However, this one is a little bit of a more funky smell. And I can really attribute that to the sprouted seeds. I let them sprout a little bit too long, so that was my own fault. And I kind of had a feeling it might do that. For you guys making your own cheeses, it might be a good place to start using unsprouted seeds or nuts. That way you get a little bit more consistent results, because during the sprouting process, they already start interacting with bacteria in the air, obviously, and that's pretty hard to avoid. So I think that might have slightly lessened the quality of this batch. But besides that, I think it was pretty good. My favorite out of the two were out of the four were definitely the Sheila Heat and the lemon juice. I liked a lot more than the other two. So anyways, this was a fun experiment, and I wanted to keep all these recipes really simple. Some of the cheese recipes I use involve a variety of additives. So coming up, I'll make another video showing a specific recipe that involves a couple of different additives in one cheese. And I'll also show how to do it using a nut. So we'll have some more fermenting fun coming up soon. These ones I let ferment for a little over 24 hours. I was actually out of my house for, I was working a lot longer than I thought towards the end of the fermenting time. So they fermented longer than I had planned, but they came out really good. For those of you trying your fermentation at home, I think if you're using an unsprouted seed, at 6 hours or so, you'll start to notice some tanginess developing. At 12 hours, you'll start getting a pretty good sourness. When you start approaching 24, that's when you get the full flavor. Now, I put these in the fridge for half of a day before I am trying them now. And something about getting it cold really seems to like stabilize the flavor. I mean, it slows down the reproductive rate of the probiotic bacteria, so it stops the fermentation, or it greatly slows the fermentation. But the flavors always seem to be a lot better. So if you make some and then you try it at room temp and you're a little bit unsure, I definitely recommend putting it in the fridge for half a day or a day or something, letting it all stabilize and yeah, I think that you might enjoy it more after it has sat in the fridge. Now, something really interesting about sunflower cheese, and this is what I'm excited about with this batch, especially with this batch because of the fact that, like I said, I sprouted them too long, so I can tell that the bacteria profile is not 100% ideal, but it's still really nice. With sunflower cheese, I often will let it sit in the fridge after I'm done making it for a couple of weeks, and the flavor just keeps changing really slowly. And when you get your recipe just right, and you let it do that long aging process, kind of comparable to like high-end dairy cheeses, they have like these long aging processes, you can get a lot of very interesting flavor notes. I've had a couple of batches that came out like very much like blue cheese with the sunflower cheese, and I'll use that in recipes, especially in salad. You can make a dressing and you incorporate maybe a quarter cup or something like that of the sunflower cheese, the sunflower blue cheese, and the salad just gets so creamy and it's interesting. I mean, using this in salads really changes the whole game. So it's pretty fun to play with. I'll definitely do some more videos about these coming up because there's just a lot to learn about it and a lot of different things that can be done. But I hope you guys enjoyed this initial experiment, and I hope you guys play with your own recipes and develop some awesome cheeses. Let's recondition the society to understand that these are not fake cheeses, because as a vegan, a lot of people, when I suggest making cheese, are like, oh, cheese has to have milk, that's fake cheese. And yes, the stuff that they sell in the stores, I would agree is fake cheese, because it's just proteins and starches meant to match the consistency of cheese and the flavor, adding natural flavors and things. That's fake cheese. It's just replicating the flavor and consistency of dairy cheese. This, I would argue wholeheartedly, is real cheese, because you're actually allowing the natural fermentation process, which is the primary characteristic that gives real cheese its flavor. So, enjoy.